Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Bonus episode, Bronx Tales. War Baby here with another episode of Murderous Minors. Hey lovelies, I hope everyone had a fun Halloween. I had so many adorable trick-or-treaters in great costumes of all ages and sizes. I made sure to tell the older kids to be safe because I knew some of them would go out later for mischief, after all of the little princesses and pirates had gone to bed. I can say with the utmost confidence that when teens go out to play pranks on neighbors, they don't expect it to end in death. If anything, the kids seem to be the most in danger in these situations. Homeowners increasingly have had no issue shooting at children whom they deem a threat. Around 1 a.m. on Valentine's Day 2014, 15-year-old Adrian Broadway and 6 friends egged a car parked outside the home of 48-year-old Willie Noble in Little Rock, Arkansas. Twice that night, the kids covered the car in toilet paper, mayonnaise, eggs, and leaves. The pranking was a friendly retaliation for a Halloween prank that Willie Noble's 16-year-old son had played on them the previous year. But Willie Noble didn't know or didn't care what was really going on. Upon hearing noises outside, he came out and opened fire on the kids' car as they drove off. 15-year-old Adrian Broadway was shot in the head and died at the hospital. Willie Noble received a 30-year prison sentence, which has already been upheld on appeal and is eligible for parole after serving 21 years. And in May of 2019, 19-year-old Brian Solis showed up at a house in northeast Houston, Texas around 11:30 p.m. with about 15 other teenagers. They were armed with paintball guns and wanted to fight the 17-year-old boy who lived in the home. They fired at the front door, leaving a large pink splotch of paintball paint. The boy got his dad out of bed and he too went outside with a gun. Seeing the horde of armed teens, he fired his shotgun toward the crowd, striking Brian. The teens scattered and Brian Solis ended up at the hospital where he later died. No charges were filed against this father. Many more kids have been shot but not killed following similar egging and prank incidents, so that's what I tend to think about in regards to such deaths. And recall the shocking case from episode 27, Recent Rampage? If you'll remember, we covered the New Year's Day 2019 story of a 14-year-old boy who stole his mother's car to joyride and egg vehicles with friends. One egg hit Christopher Lopez's Lincoln, and he gave chase. The teen ran a red light, causing a violent crash that killed 45-year-old mother Sylvia Zavala, who was spending the New Year with family in the Houston area. The boy was charged as a juvenile with murder, but he could still be tried as an adult. 48-year-old Christopher Lopez is charged with manslaughter, failure to stop and render aid, and assault with a deadly weapon. Their trials are pending. On this episode of Murderous Minors, we cover 2 tragic Halloween cases of post-pubescent pranksters turned kid killers. Both of these cases are out of the Bronx, New York, a borough of New York City located across the Harlem River from Manhattan. Popular attractions include the Bronx Zoo and Yankee Stadium. Overall, the NYPD reported a 1% decrease in crime last year, but that was an average. The Bronx is the exception. Back on Halloween night, 1998, 21-year-old Karl Jackson set out for the Crotona Park section of the Bronx. He and his girlfriend Darlene were to pick up her young son Clyde from a party, drop him off at his sitter's, and then continue out for a night of fun. Karl was a quiet guy, working at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter. As a habit, Karl stayed home on Halloween night. His dad told Michael Cooper of the New York Times that Karl was a, quote, young life snuffed out over nothing, but that's what Halloween has gotten into. He never used to go out on Halloween. He always said it was too dangerous, even as a teenager. But this year, he wanted to take the child out. As Darlene began to drive away with Karl and Clyde around 11:15, their car was hit by some eggs. Karl got out of the passenger seat and confronted the group of kids he thought threw them, got back into the car. He was then shot in the head. After an almost 2-week manhunt, 17-year-old Curtis Sterling of Brooklyn was taken into custody after trying to sell the murder weapon to an undercover cop. An anonymous tip had led to a sting operation which successfully drew their suspect out into the open. He served 20 years for manslaughter and attempted robbery for the death of Karl Jackson. Each Halloween he was incarcerated, Curtis Sterling received a Halloween card from Karl's mother which read, "I'm glad you're still there." He was paroled on Christmas Eve of 2015. Just before Halloween of 2005 was fatal as well, when a group of teens, including 15-year-old Jeffrey Ivey and 17-year-old Erik Fuller, were egging vehicles in the Bronx. They hit a parked van belonging to 31-year-old Joseph Padro, brother of an NYPD detective out of Brooklyn. Joseph was husband to Maria and father to 2, including a 3-year-old son. Padro demanded the kids clean off his van, and when they ran off, Jeffrey Ivey would later tell police that Padro gave chase in his vehicle, stopping on a curb and continuing after them on foot. He said they were chased into a building, and Erik handed him the gun, and Jeffrey fired at Padro. What we know for sure is that 15-year-old Jeffrey Ivey shot Padro in the leg, back, and head as he was being pursued. Joseph lingered for a few days before passing away. His organs were donated, enriching the lives of 5 other people. This family had already had tragedy touch their lives once in 1999 when an auxiliary officer's vehicle hit and killed Maria's 14-year-old daughter, Yahara. No one disputed that Ivey was the trigger man, but the 2 boys' statements didn't match at all. The older boy, 17-year-old Erik Fuller, was technically the owner of the .38 caliber pistol, and his lawyer would later contend that he did not intend for it to kill anyone. Jeffrey Ivey's brother made a statement saying that he was technically a special education student and was in the 8th grade instead of the 10th, saying, quote, "He's not all there. He's not that smart. He can be influenced by an older man. He didn't have the gun. The guy he was with gave him the gun and told him to shoot." Jeffrey's brother claimed that Erik Fuller put the gun in the younger boy's hand and instructed him to shoot at Joseph Padro, so he did. Erik Fuller gave a statement to police saying, quote, "I was getting ready to put the gun in my pocket. Jeffrey snatched it from me. I screamed out, 'No, Jeff,' and he started to shoot the guy." But 15-year-old Jeffrey's version differed, and in his written statement he said, quote, "The man is yelling that he's going to beat me up. Erik is in the building and hands me a black gun. The man approached me and I pointed the gun at him and fired. I was very afraid. I ran out of the building and Erik followed behind me. I passed him back the gun and kept on running." He said he felt threatened by Padro, who was significantly larger than him. He says that he was in a fog as he fled, but distinctly remembered hearing more gunshots. 17-year-old Erik supposedly had the gun. Ultimately, it didn't matter whose bullets actually killed Joseph Padro, and they were both convicted on the charges of second-degree murder and received sentences of 5 years to life. Erik Fuller was paroled in August of 2015. He was 27 years old. Jeffrey Ivey was paroled in June of 2018 at the age of 28. Violent crime continues to be an epidemic for families in the Bronx. Who knew eggs could lead to murder? It just goes to prove that kids can turn killers at any moment, just like grown-ups. I hope you had a great Halloween, lovelies. Until next time, don't be scared.